I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. You know, when we talk about policies concerning the homeless crisis, there's really two big court cases that control what cities can and cannot do about people camping. The big one was out of Boise, Idaho, but there's another one here in Oregon, the city of Grants Pass. We've told you about it before, and it just took a major next step this morning, one that could influence homeless policy across the West Coast. So that is our big story tonight. You're looking at a petition to the U.S. Supreme Court, our nation's highest court, from lawyers representing the city of Grants Pass. They want the 9 most powerful justices in the land to take up their case and make a final ruling. That's obviously a big step, but will the court even hear the case? That's the first thing that would need to happen, and it's certainly not a guarantee. Let's explain why and find out how we got here in the first place. Let's start with the ruling out of Boise, Idaho that I mentioned. The case is called Martin v. Boise. In 2018, the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals ruled a city cannot charge someone with a crime or give them a ticket for sleeping in a public space if there's no shelter beds available, if there's a lack of shelter beds. In other words, nowhere else for the person to go. The judge declared that charging someone with a crime for sleeping outside when they have no other choice is a violation of the 8th Amendment. That means it qualifies as cruel and unusual punishment. Boise asked that the full 9th Circuit review the ruling, and they said no. So they petitioned the case to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the court then denied the request to even review the ruling. That happened in December of 2019, which means that ever since then, that lower court ruling has stood in that case. Now, the path of the Grants Pass case so far has been exactly the same as that of the Boise case, although we've not yet heard from the Supreme Court yet. In 2022, a 3-judge panel from the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals agreed with the lower court, ruling that Grants Pass cannot enforce its camping ban. That ban would punish homeless folks with civil citations for sleeping in public places, even if there's nowhere else for them to go. So the city appealed, asking the full 9th Circuit Court to hear the case. Sound familiar? Last month, that appeal was denied by a single vote. And that leads us to today. The next and final step the city can take to try and enforce their camping ban is to ask the Supreme Court to review it. Now, it's worth noting the political makeup of the Supreme Court has changed greatly since they denied hearing the Boise case. That might be the reason why lawyers for the city of Grants Pass think they have a better chance now for the court to take the case. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died in 2020 and was replaced by conservative Justice Amy Coney Barrett. This was obviously the biggest political change. Justice Stephen Breyer retired last year and was replaced by Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Conservatives still hold a 6-3 majority, with Chief Justice John Roberts sometimes surprising us with moderate opinions, but that still gives the conservatives a 5-4 advantage. The lawyers representing Grants Pass obviously hope the court is ready to rule differently on the homeless camping issue. They released this statement this morning. The 9th Circuit's decision in this case and Martin v. Boise have contributed to the growing problem of encampments in cities across the West. These decisions are legally wrong and continue to tie the hands of local governments in their efforts to devise solutions to the complex problems of homelessness. The tragedy is that these decisions are actually harming the very people they purport to protect. We wanted to interview the lawyers to ask more questions, but they said, no thanks. And here's the big question presented to the U.S. Supreme Court. Does the enforcement of generally applicable laws regulating camping on public property, does that constitute cruel and unusual punishment prohibited by the 8th Amendment? We expect to hear a decision from the Supremes on whether or not they'll even take the case, either late this year or early next year. But in the meantime, we'd like to hear from you. What do you think? Put on your imaginary U.S. Supreme Court justice robes and then share your thoughts and your reasoning. Are camping bans cruel and unusual punishment and therefore unconstitutional? If so, why? If not, why not? And we all want to hear what you have to say about that. Either send us an email or call us. You can email us at thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail 503-226-5090. Oregon Governor Tina Kotek, obviously frustrated by a lack of progress to fix Portland's downtown, including the homeless issue there, held her first task force meeting today. If you watched our earlier newscast, yes, you heard about this, but Stick around, because we do things very differently here on The Story. You're going to see what I mean in a moment. The governor said the group will spend the next 2 months studying problems and coming up with specific steps to improve things here. Interestingly, the media were kept out of the discussions so that people there could talk freely about the issues. Kotek said the group will break into committees and focus on 5 key issues. They include a vision of economic prosperity for the central city, also community livability, which means how the city looks and feels, especially in regards to trash and graffiti, community safety, unsheltered homelessness, and taxes and services, making sure the tax structure is competitive, they said, which means not too high. Now, at a press conference after the meeting, the governor kind of sounded like the mayor of Portland.
The types of challenges facing Portland are similar in other large cities, particularly cities like ours, which has been very focused on a downtown core that's very office-centric. The pandemic has changed that norm, and so we're trying to figure out what does that mean for us going forward. We also have some other issues that are different from other places. The level of unsheltered homelessness, for example, is significant in Portland and how that's impacting us.
The governor lives in North Portland, so that's why she's calling this her city. The governor appointed Dan McMillan, the co-chair of the task force. He's the president and CEO of a company called The Standard. It's a big Portland-based insurance company. It has 3,500 employees. He said the Portland of the future is going to look different than it does now, with less reliance on businesses to fill the downtown buildings.
You know, we think about the central city specifically, and you mentioned office, but we see a different mixed-use sort of mix in the future, where you have a vibrant mix of the arts, the services, some office, as well as residential. I think that will take some time to change, but we do see this whole downtown core mix changing over time.
All right, so that's the nuts and bolts of the task force. But wait, there are some fascinating political undercurrents going on here as well. Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler today released an 8-page list of things that he wants from the task force. Some are the same things that he's asked for from the state, but not yet received. And it mostly includes money. They include asking for hundreds of millions of dollars for various homeless programs, $46 million to clean up various parts of the city, including some ODOT property, and request that the Oregon State Police open an office in Portland, preferably downtown, and staff it with 96 officers who can help Portland police. The governor basically said, we'll add that one to the pile.
I am aware of his set of recommendations. One of the things that we need to remember is no one government, whether it's the city of Portland, Multnomah County, or the state, or even a governor or a mayor, is going to solve all the challenges facing downtown Portland. So that list coming from the city of Portland proper, the government, is certainly going to get added into the mix.
Maybe the bottom of the mix is what it seemed like. But the governor said the most important thing is for people to know the task force is about action, action, action. What sort of action? Well, you know, the sort that kind of looks like meetings and talking and studying.
This is not just a big conversation where people just get to vent and study something. This is an opportunity for folks across the city of Portland to come together with action steps in 5 main areas that will then be presented at the Oregon Business Summit in December. So it's a very tight timeline. The bulk of the work will be done in the 5 separate committees coming to the task force, with further elaboration and conversation at the Business Summit in December. There's a sense of urgency in this group. We are here to make progress, build on good things that are happening, and be very clear that at this moment, we can't just talk about things, we have to do things and have very specific steps to make progress.
Which sounds great. And yet, when our Blair Best asked what action we will see, Governor Kotek said, stay tuned. Right. Okay, here's my opinion on this. I hope that it works. I mean, I really do. The governor today said Portland is the economic engine for the state of Oregon. I'm not sure I agree with that. There are a few big companies in places like Beaverton and Hillsborough and elsewhere that are big parts of that engine as well. But for those of us who live near downtown or work downtown or love downtown, something needs to change to save the city that we love. The fact that the governor felt she had to convene this task force is amazing to me. And it's a political slap in the face to every elected leader in Portland and Multnomah County, and even to the metro government. Take a look at the names on this list for the committee. It's a who's who of elected politicians in Oregon, and then there are special interest group leaders and some business people as well. But on the politicians, any one of them could have, should have, taken the reins of this before now to get more direct action on downtown. And credit where it's due. I think Governor Kotek stepping in shows some bold leadership that is needed. It signals that the problems in Oregon's biggest city, well, they're huge, and that other politicians are failing to figure it out. But I do have serious doubts about whether we will see real change from this group. I mean, it's already made up of 40 people. And the governor said another 100 will be invited to join some of the 5 committees. Oh, goody! More people and more meetings. That's wonderful. And they're giving themselves 2 months to gather their thoughts before having yet another big meeting in December to talk about what they've learned and maybe even plan some more meetings. The only benefit that many people working on a task force has is if they actually meet downtown and maybe bring some life into the area. Hopefully they'll stick around and get lunch at a small business restaurant and pump some money into that. But while the governor is pledging action, the only specific thing she can point to, more meetings. Well, here's an idea, Governor Kotek. Get your task force to partner with Solve and spend an hour before each meeting cleaning up a different part of the city. At least then, we will see something happening. Well, that's my opinion. You don't have to agree with me, and a lot of you don't, but I do want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the governor's task force for downtown? You know the drill. Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. I do look forward to hearing from you. Coming up next on The Story, we'll share some of your thoughts on a big report we had recently regarding an Eastern Oregon mom's lawsuit against the state of Oregon for not being allowed to become a foster parent. It's all because she says she will not support LGBTQ plus kids. And then later, the orca that was supposed to be shipped back to her home waters in the Pacific Northwest died Friday in an unexpected twist. We have the latest on plans to bring Toki's remains back to the Salish Sea. And we'll hear from those who were with her during her final hours. That's when The Story returns. Here at The Story, we love to interact with you. So now let's check out some of your thoughts from a story we told you about on Friday. A Malheur County mom is suing the state of Oregon after she was denied the ability to be a foster parent because she refuses to support LGBTQ plus children. Jessica Bates is a widowed mom with 5 kids. She wanted to adopt 2 children out of foster care, a pair of siblings under the age of 9. She says she was listening to the radio one day when God told her to do it. She claims the state is discriminating against her for being a Christian and argues the state is violating her First Amendment rights by forcing her to use pronouns she does not agree with. Her case was in federal court in Portland last week. The judge has not yet made a ruling on it. But if Bates wins the case, Oregon's regulation that foster parents have to support LGBTQ kids could be removed. In the meantime, Bates' lawyers want the state to let her continue the process toward becoming a foster parent while the lawsuit proceeds. When it comes to how some of you feel about that, well, there's certainly some support for Bates and her opinions.
Children shouldn't be deciding what they want to be, and foster parents are needed so desperately. I know another couple that didn't get a baby because they didn't think the child ought to be taken to church because the parents go. Totally ridiculous. I hope that she does something about this, the judge.
Thank you for your comment. Wally wrote to us to say, as an adoptive parent and a Christian, I am very much in support of this mother of 5 who would like to adopt 2 foster children. DHS representing the state of Oregon has violated the natural law as instituted by God himself and caved into the woke philosophy of transgenderism. Well, Bates has some of your support. The majority of the comments that we received went a little bit more like this. Marie wrote, I'm sitting here fuming about that woman and her Christian bigotry. These days, folks bang their Bibles and spew hate. She absolutely should not get to foster kids. There's enough hate in this country without poisoning kids. And Rob chimed in, there's no constitutional right to be a foster parent. The state can set the standards in the best interest of the child. Not placing kids in bigoted homes is well within their rights. The court should find in favor of the state.
I myself am bisexual, born and raised Catholic. I believe in my morals, right and wrong, good and evil, but it doesn't mean that I have to conform to choices of what my parents brought upon me. So, in saying that, I disagree with her and her lawyer. Yes, I believe that the LBG community should be able to be adopted and have, wonderful homes, but I don't think that it should be a choice to the person adopting them, whether or not they can pick and choose who to love. I think that's wrong.
Now, a few of you offered up ideas like this one from a viewer named Santa. The problem with the foster system is that one size fits all. We all have our own sensibilities. In today's climate, why can't foster parents and foster kids have a matching service of sorts? Good question. Please keep your thoughts coming. We really do enjoy them. Email us at thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail. The number is 503-226-5090. Coming up after the break, here on The Story, held in captivity for over 50 years, the southern resident orca known as Toki died before her journey home to the Salish Sea. We have the latest from conservationists on what they believe happened and the next steps to try to bring the orca's remains back home. That's when The Story returns. Well, by now, you've likely heard the news that Toki, the southern resident killer whale held in captivity in Miami for a half-century, died Friday ahead of her planned relocation back to the Pacific Northwest. The massive undertaking appeared to be a done deal, with Indianapolis Colts owner Jim Irsay pledging millions of dollars to help make it happen. But last week, the orca's health suddenly deteriorated, and now there are questions about if the orca's remains will be returned to her native waters. Over the weekend, U.S. Senator Maria Cantwell released a statement urging that very thing. Toki's remains should return to the Pacific Northwest. My office has been in communication with the administration to urge them to work with tribes to ensure their voices are heard and ceremonial rights are protected. In the meantime, we're hearing from experts who were preparing for the orca's return, many simply stunned by her death. That includes a scientist from Seattle who was hours away from helping Toki get ready for the Salish Sea by playing recordings of the ambient sound that she would hear there. Erica Zucco with our sister station in Seattle is in Miami with the story.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Joe Olson is a leading expert on capturing sound underwater. In May, he showed us how a hydrophone could record noise.
The hydrophone doesn't have to go very deep at all before you can hear the sound.
And weeks ago, he used one for recordings in the San Juan Islands to play for Toki before her move.
Just the sounds of the environment, which includes all kinds of stuff, wave noise and boats going by and everything.
He flew to Miami Friday to prepare a speaker for those sounds, but landed to a text with the news Toki had passed.
And it just hit me in the heart. By the time I got to my hotel, I was in shock and I was so devastated.
He had also planned to tape her sounds so the world could hear her and listen for any signs of similar calls to pods back in the Salish Sea.
I think that it's important for everybody to have a voice, right? And so to hear Toki's voice just would have been profound. And that's the thing I think that really hurts me so deeply, that we never got a chance to hear Toki's voice.
Olson hopes the unique connection Toki captured with so many people will take hold and inspire more action.
That singular connection with Toki also then radiates out to the entire planet and to then the ecosystems that support the animals. My hope is that Toki's legacy is that really everybody starts taking more action to protect the entire planet, to work with protecting their own ecosystems, and in doing so, they help to protect the entire planet.
And tonight we're also hearing from a conservationist who was with Toki during some of her final hours. He says her death followed months of encouraging activity. Again, here's our colleague Erica Zucco with this story.
It's a tremendous surprise and horrible in every way.
When her robust swims were replaced with stomach pain and a refusal to eat, caretakers pulled out all the stops.
When she stops eating, you have to find other ways to treat her. So in this case, you lower the medical pool water so that people can be around her, and you can inject both intravenously and intramuscularly medication.
Early signs show she died of renal failure, but Vinnick says necropsy results are needed to tell why. In the meantime, he's focused on returning her remains to the Lummi Nation, which pushed for her release.
She is their relative who lives beneath the waves, and that's sacred obligation.
On a broader level, he says she represents a shift.
The arc of her story, given its 53 years of captivity, the arc of her story is from those days of when so many people didn't think there was anything wrong with capturing a whale, to now it's no longer accepted, not only not to capture them, the whole industry is changing.
One of those changes was a rare partnership between conservationists and the Seaquarium, made possible by new ownership.
How do we work with people we disagree with? How do we work with people that we have to find common ground for? She allowed us to do that.
Her move was not without controversy, but even in that conflict, there was unity.
I mean, there are trainers all over the country, many of whom have objected to what we're trying to do, but they all loved her.
That conservationist you just heard from says he believes the necropsy on Toki is complete. He's just waiting for the results, like all the rest of us. Well, that's the end of our show. Thanks for watching. But remember, the story, our collective story, that never ends. Stick around now for a bit of a mood boost with the good stuff coming your way next. And I'll see you right back here tomorrow at 6:30.